Welcome to 13 Minutes of News in 13 minutes or less. Let's see what we can get through, you guys. There's actually, a decent amount of stuff here. So we talked about maybe 2 weeks ago, or was it last week? I think it was 2 weeks ago, about Minneapolis, the city, moving to be in a more unionized state with gig economy. Again, Massachusetts still kind of spinning wheels and trying to figure out what to do. And on that note, I'm going to be doing a Curry Live with Dana, a good rideshare buddy of mine from back in the day. He's been doing it as long as me, 2015, and he lives in Boston. We're going to try and do that next week, so we'll include some of this too, what's going on in his state, because he's very aware of the H1234 legislation and the fact they were supposed to push the union right away. So we might get some insight there. Stay tuned to the community tab and other things. But now it is moving for the state. And the wording gets weird. There's an article out about, basically the Twin Cities have now, because they are such the majority of the population of Minnesota, that Minnesota is now just making the movement. And again, it seems to be like they're trying to make it look like not like AB5, but more like Washington, which if it's very difficult, but what Washington did is better, but it's still a version of AB5. I mean, even AB5 doesn't exist, guys, to be honest. AB 2257 is the bill that had to replace it because they had to carve out so many industries because this law, AB5, was such trash. So the new standards in a lot of states are trying to get ahead of this type of legislation. And that's what kind of Washington made an agreement between the unions, the Teamsters, the city, the rideshare companies, but then it's now going to be including the other gigs too. And we can get into that later, but that's the same thing that's happening here in Minnesota now. The whole state is pushing, well, I mean, I guess the Twin Cities have the voice, so they're pushing to go to this, this way of paying drivers better is what they call it. We've seen this played out in New York City before, the way that they do this. And I always say floor meets ceiling. This is where if you're a good earner on an app or whatever, if you're in the higher end of earners on any given app in your area and you're good at it and you're veteran, and you know the hours to work and you give up things to work those hours and all that stuff, this is where floor meets ceiling. And by that I mean, like, you're going to have to, you won't be paid that much anymore in your market for even what you're used to, because now they got to float some of that back down to the people who don't even work hard, don't try, only last a couple of weeks, don't know how to earn, and don't try new things. So it's like it's kind of a support system, it has to balance. And that's why I say highest paid, lowest paid, and then bring the lowest paid up and bring the highest paid down, and, kind of creep it till it's there. I don't like that theory. To me, that's the same as just calling everybody an employee. And at that point, you might as well just give them benefits and see who sticks around for an employment job with these companies. But there's a sunny side of the news on this too. So the American rights movement has, in Kansas, there's House Bill 2019. And House Bill 2019 is basically the opposite of AB5. It's actually a bill before they try an AB5 type bill that says, we don't want you touching independent contractors. We don't want any and they even use language in all of what's being submitted and all the documents around of AB5. I love it because they're actually showing the truth about it. And they're saying, look, AB5 was a failure. Everybody got carve-outs that got the carve-outs. The others, they're screwed. There's there's several million jobs destroyed. AB5 killed off about 600 industries, and yeah, about 100 got carved out. But, then it's, the other 500 didn't come back. I say this all the time, but it's been a while, and sometimes I do this because I like to remind people. But my good friend Gail Gordon owns a nonprofit opera house in Santa Barbara, California. She's operated there for 50 years and 40 years, and she holds the music that her grandmother passed down from the Nazi camps, um, as she was in one of the Nazi camps, her grandmother, and she passed this music down that otherwise wouldn't exist. Gail owns a nonprofit opera house that is filed correctly too. It is filed with the state of California and accepted, and has been for all these years, as a nonprofit, 501c3 or 501c. But she had everything's correct. AB5 not only killed off freelancers, writers, this, that, the other, musicians in some areas, this, that, the other, it killed off her business. And I always use that as the example because that to me doesn't even equate. The state takes money from that and has for 40 years. She's built a business, a legacy. The music that she's doing could potentially die off. It's being done nowhere else. So this is just one example. I have many examples, and I'm going to actually put them in the show notes. There's some AB5 comments. There's a blog roll. There's jobs that were lost. I'm going to put them in the comments of this because I'm so damn heated about it. And I want you guys to, you'll see what they are. I'm going to put them near the top. You guys tell me what you think. Scroll through those. They're not documents that are super public to everybody. They're produced by Karen Anderson, who's a big fighter of all this stuff. And she has shared them with me, and I know that I'm okay to share them. So go in there and look. Read the stories of the people who got affected. It will blow your mind. And every one of you should go in and read one or two of the stories. Pick a couple. Just skim them till one makes sense, and then read what they wrote. Because these are real people who were affected by this, and this is what they're trying to do everywhere. So here's Kansas, though. And Kansas is not one that was even on the radar of all the people I talked to. But here's Kansas now stepping up huge, and I love it. House Bill 2019, Kansas, strengthening independent contractors' rights. They are literally going before legislation that tries to say, no, let's get them employees and unions and all this. They're fighting it by not only getting ready with a Prop 22 solution for the gig economy, but I'm also talking for people who are self-employed, true independent contractors, traditional, and from way back when, 40, 30, 50 years of doing business that could be destroyed. So Prop 22 and those kind of things jump in the way to help the gig worker. But what about all these other people? This is a nightmare in the making in many states. And Kansas did something that I just find truly amazing. It is fully backed. It's going to pass. It's got all the votes it needs and then some. But they are going to have straight up language basically saying, hey, that independent contractor writing we got, we're going to lock that in. And we don't want anybody screwing with it. So, and then they quote or they use AB5 examples. We do not want they've cleaned it up, but my version, we don't want the crap that happened in California. No AB5, no true independent contractor will go out of business or be required to be an employee in this state. They're making a huge statement because we already asked, what about the right to work states and stuff? What would they do? Because would they just go along with federal law if the current administration gets all these rule changes, which are going into effect in May? So obviously they will. They don't have to, but with time, there's usually all the rest of the states do. Certain amounts of money are thrown at certain states and more at others. And the bottom line is that Kansas is stepping up, and I think it's going to make other states do the same thing. And they're making a legislation going, look, this that makes sense, that allows all these people to have the American dream? We're going to rewrite it for you guys. I don't like using the word bozos, okay? Or clowns. even though I have two friends on YouTube who both use that commonly. But basically, I love it because it's like the legislation in the House is literally, in Kansas, is literally saying, hey, bozos, hey, clowns. And in this one, it does apply. Like, knock it off. Here, we already have independent contractor law, but here, let's rewrite it so you guys understand and quit trying to screw everybody over. So we want to see this pass. And then, because I guarantee you, I already know of some other states that are going to be right behind this that I thought if this happened would have come out of those states first. So we also didn't think Minneapolis would go first. So I guess there's just, you can never can tell how it's going to play out, but it is playing out. There are states very much going to push their agenda right now. And it's the third year of a presidency, and that's when that's the working year where things get actually done and pushed. And the Biden administration, I'm not dogging on it, I'm not getting political, but it had three big goals coming in. I've talked about this. Presidencies usually leave a legacy of one of the three goals they come in with. The only one that Biden really has left in his grip is employment and making everybody be W-2 employees and everybody be in a union. By that means, sure, there's going to be some exceptions, guys, but they're very few and far between. Ask people in AB5 and read those comments in here. But he does want that. But, at the same time I say that, and here's how you know I'm not being political or being, again, people have their beliefs. I just believe in working for myself and that I have that right here. That's always been an afforded right in this country. Biden has always believed this all through his days in Congress. And he's been doing this for 50 plus years. This has been one of his life goals is to see this through. So I'm not even dogging the guy. I know that this is what he wants and even what he believes, but I don't. And that doesn't mean I have to disagree with everything the man thinks, but on this one, we don't see eye to eye at all. And that's just straight up. That's not being political. I just have been living the independent contractor lifestyle outside of the gig economy for many years before, and I would like that to continue. And because of the things the gig economy will be doing in the future here, I would like all of you to have that right, because it is quite a right. It's more than just flexibility, working when you want. It's kind of owning your brand and your identity. That said, that's 13 minutes of news in just under 13 minutes. Peace.